Again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's webinar, we're going to go through kind of the customer life cycle. We're going to talk about everything from creating a new customer and a prospect to a proposal, turning that proposal into a work order, and then doing the final invoicing from that work order. So what I've done, though, is to save a little time. I've done a little data entry that's going to speed things up. But if you have any questions on this, I'll definitely point out how to do all this as we're going through it. So the first thing today we're going to do is I'm going to come over here and we're going to click on the Customers tab. And if you remember in the last webinar, we talked about the new feature that we have where you can create a new view within this tab. So let's go ahead and do that first. And what I'm going to do is I want to create a new view just for my prospects. So you notice right now, if I want to look at my prospects, I could just click on the prospects icon here, and it's going to give me all my customers that are currently flagged as a current prospect. And really, that's where you would flag the customer record to say, this is really a prospect at this point. I'm trying to sell them something. So what I'm going to do is uncheck that, and we're going to create a new view. So I'm going to come over here to my available columns, and here's where I can pick and choose which columns I want to see on this grid. So I'm going to take away a few of the columns. I'm going to take away my address and my state, because I don't want to see those right now. I just want to see the city. But I want to add in here the salesperson. I want to add in the type of customer it is, and then also what's called the status, which will tell me whether it's a active customer, a terminated customer, or a prospect. So there's my view now, and you can see I have my new columns. And I could change the order of these too. So maybe I want to put my salesperson after my city, let's say after my city, and then I want to put the customer status, and then I want to put the customer type. And I'm going to filter the customer status to only show me customers that are currently prospects. So you'll notice if I click the filter button now, it's just giving me all of my customers that are currently set to a prospect status. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this grid so that I don't have to do this every time. So I'm going to click on my layout options. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call this my prospect view. Okay? And I'm going to say save the layout. So now let's just do a refresh here. So I'm going to refresh this page. So when it refreshes, it will always come in and give me my default view. And that's my standard view that you see right here. But now I could click on my layout options button. I'm going to choose my prospect view, say load layout, and then it changes it to that. So a nice way to be able to have different views within the customer view right here. What's also nice about this view is if I wanted to take this data now and I click export to Excel, whatever data is currently in the view, that's what it would export to Excel. So let's go ahead and let's look at the prospect that I just created. And I created one today called Stephen Jones. So it's right here at the bottom. Before I do that, I want to show you another nice thing I could do with the queue here. What I can do is I could take any one of these columns and I can actually sort these and do groupings. So if I take salesperson here and drag it to right over here, you notice what I've done now is I've actually grouped my view so I could see this is all the customers that currently don't have a salesperson assigned. Here's everyone that's assigned to Andy Smith, and here's every prospect that's assigned to Michael Marks. So just another way to look at the prospects within the customer grid itself. If I want to remove that, I just click on the X here, and it will go back to my normal view. Also, if I wanted to just filter and just say, just show me all of only Michael Marks's prospects, I can actually filter that down too and look at it from that way too. So many different ways to sort, select, and view the data here. So let's go into this first customer, Stephen Jones, that I just created earlier. And you'll notice there's really not a lot of data in here yet because I haven't really done anything. The only thing I've done is if I come over here to my proposals, you'll notice that I have an open proposal for this customer. And let's click on View to view that proposal. So what I did is I real quick created a proposal right before the webinar just to save a little bit of time. And what I did is I put in here that I'm going to quote them for the installation of a new security system, and we're going to sell that for $695, and you notice it is taxable. And I'm also going to click on my parts and see all the different parts that we're going to sell on this proposal. And I have my control panel, I have a motion sensor, and I have a keypad. Now you'll notice the rate on this proposal is 0, meaning I am not charging for the individual parts. Whether you charge or not, obviously, is up to you. In this case, I've decided to put all of the price into my invoice item total. So I'm not individually line item and charging for individual parts. Again, that's just up to you on how you want to build a proposal. So you'll notice on my summary line here, I can see my item total is $695. My parts total is 0, even though it does include parts. There's my tax. My proposal totals for $741.95. And you'll notice I also have RMR. So that's recurring monthly revenue that we also want to sell as part of this proposal. So let's click on the RMR tab here, and we can see that we're selling maintenance fees for $10 a month, and we're selling monitoring services for $29.95. Now, right now, I have put in an activation date in here, but I'm going to change that most likely and modify that once I'm done with the installation. So even though we put in an activation date in when we create it, it's typically not necessarily, although it could be, the activation date where we want to start billing the recurring. Now, if I needed to edit this proposal, I could just come up to here and say Edit Proposal, and this will take me into my Edit screen where I can edit all the different aspects of that proposal. Just a few that I'm going to point out here. I won't go into every setup option, but you'll notice there's a status. Now, a status, and this is something you'll set up in the setup of the application, is really nice to use, and think of this as your pipeline. So as the different statuses change, you could come in here and put in what is going on with this proposal. Meaning, is it pending? Is it rejected? Maybe you're waiting for a decision from the customer. But this is a nice way so that you know where you stand in the sales process. So use that status to update this and have your salespeople update it, so if you're management, you know what's going on with that proposal real quick by looking at it. Maybe I don't have one set up, but maybe I want to have a status that says quoted or quote sent. So I know that at least I sent the quote. And again, it's kind of like what we call the pipeline, so you know what's going on. So if I wanted to change a status, I just change it to a new status. The email address. The email address is the email address where if I'm going to email this to the customer, that's where it's going to go to. Now, this automatically defaults in from the customer record, but again, I can override it on an individual proposal. Here, I can also type in a contact name, so it's especially important if it's for a business, so you know who the main contact is for this proposal. Your estimated closing percentage will just tell you, and we are working on some forecasting reports that will work off of the estimated dates. So you could get some reports on when you're going to actually, what your pending sales should be based upon your estimated closing and your closing dates. Now, every proposal will need a site. So you will, if a customer has more than one site, you'll pick which site that proposal is for, which will automatically default in the sales tax rate for that site, which you can override on an individual basis, again, if need be. The term code will be the term code assigned to the invoice, so you know how it will be due. The service level is very important because the service level is eventually going to tell the work order the rules for billing this work order. So maybe I have one called an installation. I'm going to add that. So you'll notice what it did is it put a little notification here that says labor will not be invoiced based on the service level. That's because on this type of service level, we don't charge for the labor time on site because the labor time on site, in this case it's an installation, is contracted inside at $6.95. Now, if I'm going to charge based upon an hourly rate, I would set up a service level specifically for that. Here I could say, what is my system type? It's a burglar alarm. The salesperson assigned to it. The delivery method, how I want to deliver this. And you only have two choices for a work order. You could either print it and mail it to the customer, or you could email it. And I'm going to choose that. And a brief description of what this system's about. Now down at the bottom, I can update any of the item levels. I could change the price if need be. I could change and add any additional parts. I can modify the recurring revenue or add a new recurring revenue. I can choose what are called attachments. Now, attachments are set up in the setup utility. And what you do in there is you might have, for example, brochures or cut sheets or flyers on your service levels or your maintenance plans that you might want to attach to this proposal. So if you want to do that, you just click Add Attachment, and you're picking from your library. And I don't have a lot in here right now, but you would pick a letter that you would want, and it would automatically now add this letter into this proposal. So it's a nice way to add cut sheets, flyers, or additional information into a proposal when you deliver it to the customer. Notes are just any notes that you want to put in here for this proposal. So here I could say is, I talked to Stephen, he's ready to buy. Okay? And I can add as many notes as I want within here. You can also make any note a critical note, and we talked about this last time. A critical note will automatically appear when you open up the proposal to show you that note in the status bar. So I'm going to make this a critical just to show you how that works. Okay, so I'm not going to complete this yet. I want to go back in here and save the proposal. And you'll notice now it tells me the proposal has been updated. The labor will not be billed based on the service level, but it's also showing me my critical message. Talk to Stephen that he's ready to buy. Okay, now there's also another feature that I just want to point out before I close this one, and that is the copy feature. So what the copy feature does is, let's say I'm talking to Stephen and we're negotiating, and Stephen says it's a little bit too much money. What can we do to save some money? So I go into my parts and I say, well, if I reduce this, I can do this for you, and so on. So instead of modifying, which I could do, this proposal, changing and resending it to him, I can copy this. And what that will do is it will copy this proposal into a new proposal, automatically close the current one, and then I can modify the new one. Now, why would I want to do that? And that's simply so that you can have a history of all the proposals that you ever sent to this customer. That way, when the customer calls back later on and says, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have 3 cameras, and you said, no, remember we only talked about 1, and he says, no, we didn't, you'll have a history of those proposals, and you're going to be able to show him, hey, this is the old proposal, and remember this? And then we went down to 1, and he says, oh, okay, now I remember. So that's a good reason to be able to use that copy feature. Another thing you could do is if I want to print this, I could just click print, and this will print the proposal, or I could click email and email the proposal to the customer. So what I did is before the webinar, just to speed up some email delivery time, and let me just go over here real quick here. Excuse me one second. Let me just go to my other screen. Okay. So here is an email that that will look like when it gets delivered to the customer. So what the customer is going to see is they're going to see that it's going to be branded from you. It just says, Dear Stephen Jones, on behalf of Acme Alarms, we are pleased to present you with the attached proposal for a burglar alarm. And that's the type that automatically defaults in. After your review, please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions. And it's signed by the salesperson. The salesperson's email address, phone number is automatically there. And you notice the proposals are automatically added as an attachment. And if I click on that, I'll be able to see the proposal. So the proposal will have all of the information. It will have the contact, salesperson, what we sold it for, and all of the charges for that. Now, a new feature that's coming out, and it's to be released, I think, either this weekend or soon, is the ability to sequence and reorder all the line items in the proposal in any way that you want. So we're real excited to get that out the door. Then down here is all my recurring services. So these are the recurring services on top of my current charges. If it's just a hard copy, there's a place for the customer to sign it, and they could return this to you. Or if I'm the customer, you notice there's a link here where they could click on, and then they can actually go in and they can sign in and actually see this online themselves. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm bringing up a different web page, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now sign in as the customer through the web portal. So you'll notice now I'm signed in as Stephen Jones on the web portal. So this is where Stephen would have his own web portal to be able to go in, and he could see that he has an open proposal. So let's just go ahead and click on that proposal. And there's my proposal dated today, and its current status is pending. And if Stephen wants to view it, he just clicks View, and it's going to open up the proposal in Adobe right for him, so he can view it and print it. If everything looks good, I'm just going to click Don't Save It here. If everything looks good, Stephen can come over here and either say accept it or reject it. So let's say he accepts this proposal. He clicks accept. It brings him to the acceptance screen. He'll type his name in here, and he can then go ahead and sign for it. And this is hard to do with a mouse, but I'm doing the best I can. So there it is. And we'll click accept. So now this has accepted that proposal, and it tells them the proposal has been successfully accepted. And what it will also do now is it will automatically email the dealer, letting the dealer know that this has been accepted. And so let's go back into the main page now, the main application back by the dealer. I'm going to come back over here now and click Proposals. And what you'll see is under my Open Close Proposals, that proposal is no longer here. It's now under my Accepted Proposals. So I could come over here to my Accepted Proposals. I click View, and there's my proposal that we have. And you notice the status has now been set to Accepted. So I'm going to click on the Edit, because I want to go in here and I want to close this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my Completed tab. And here I can now complete this tab, because this proposal, because it's been accepted. And I could choose which system is it going to install. Or I could pick a new system. So if it's a new system that doesn't exist, I can actually add that right here on the fly. Because remember, a work order will be for a proposal. I'm going to choose this existing one just to save a little bit of time. I set it up before. And then all I have to do is I'm going to click on my Sold button to flag it as sold, which will then let me go ahead and complete this proposal. When I complete it, it's going to close the proposal and then automatically create the work order. Now, when it creates the work order, it needs two additional pieces of information. For the work order, it needs to know the status of the work order. So I'm just going to come over here and type new. And then it needs to know the type. And I'm going to say it's for a burglar alarm installation. So I'm going to click Continue. And now it's going to go ahead and create my proposal and and close this work order. So if I'm now back in the work order, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to click on the work order and open up the work order that was just created. So before I go through the work order, what I want to do, I'm going to take a little time out here. I see that there are a few questions that came through, so give me a second here. Let me just take a look at these. Okay, so the first question is, can you tell us a little bit more about the follow-up slot on the proposal, and will it alert us on the follow-up? So let me just jump back into that customer. I'm going to click on proposals. You'll notice I don't see that proposal is open because it's closed. So I click on Show Closed Proposals. So, you'll notice there is a follow-up date on the proposal. Right now, the follow-up date is informational only. We are adding the follow-up date onto the customer view and onto the proposals view. So when I click on proposals right here, I can actually look at all my follow-up dates. And what's nice about that is when you have all your open proposals, you can notice that these are a follow-up date. And a follow-up date is really just telling you, when's the next time am I supposed to get back to this customer? So you notice these ones have some very old follow-up dates back to July of 2014. That means I'm not doing a good job as a salesperson following up on this. But what I could then do is click view it, look at my notes, and follow up on it. Currently, there is no auto alert on a follow-up, but that is part of some of the things that we have on our development roadmap, is to add some more of those auto alerts for salespeople. So when they log in, they'll know that there's proposals that they need to follow up on. So I hope that answered that question. If not, please go ahead and fill out some more. Another question says, other than printing each proposal, is there a quick way to see the difference in each proposal? No, right now there's really not. You do have to go into either view the proposal and look at the detail, but there's really no way to really compare the different proposals. But I do like that idea, and I'm going to try to think about a neat way to handle that. Yeah. The next one says, is there a way to add more text beyond the 250 character limit? I believe that is something that is being worked on. I will check with the development team. But I know that they're going to expand that so that you could add more than 250 characters. And will the customer see the different versions of the proposals? The answer is only the proposals that you give them to. So if you don't want them to see it, no, you don't have to let them see it. So you could actually have a version that they never see, or if you want them to see multiple versions, you can actually have like 2 different options and say, which option do you like better? So you could have both options open at once. So the answer is yes, you can do that. Okay, so I hope that has answered those questions so far. If you have any other questions, please keep those coming in as we go along. But what we did, let me now click on work orders here. And these are all my work orders. I'm just going to sequence this by order number. And you'll notice that this is my most current work order. It was the last one that I just created today. And this is the one that was created from that proposal. So let's click on the work order to open it up. And here is my work order detail. So here I could see it's for Stephen Jones. It's for this burglar alarm. The panel is going to be a Vista 100. It's located in the basement. That's all from my setup. We're going to build this based upon our installation service level. And you can see the type of work. It's a burglar alarm installation, the salesperson. Now, so far I haven't created any appointments, but if I look at my items, I can see I have my installation fee for $695. I have all the parts that are going to go into it. I have my recurring revenue that's going to be added. My notes automatically pass through from the work order. So I could see that these notes automatically come over and so on. So now if I want to edit this work order, I could come over here and say edit, and this takes me into the edit mode. And let's go ahead and create an appointment for this. So I'll click on new appointment, and we're going to do this right now. Today, I'll pick my technician. I'm going to say we're going to set up Michael Marks. Not only is he sales, he does installations, he does a little bit of everything around here. I could tell it for the expected length. Maybe we need to be there for 2 hours. And at this point, I could click update, and this will actually update the appointment and schedule it. Here, I could turn around and do my notification. Do I want to notify the technician, the customer, or both? So I'm just going to say both here. So this will actually automatically now send a notification to the technician that this appointment was set up for them, as well as notify the customer that this appointment was scheduled. Now, let's click Save to save this work order. And what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to jump into my calendar. And here you can see on my calendar, I have this call scheduled for Michael Marks, and there he's scheduled for today for this time. Let me show you another thing right here. Give me 1 second here. Because Michael Marks was our customer here, and I'm waiting for an email to come through, but Michael's going to get an email letting him know that this appointment was just scheduled for him. And then he can actually, the customer can actually confirm or decline that appointment if it's acceptable for them at that time. So, okay, so there is the email that's just coming through right now. This is the actual email that was the technician view. This is the email. There we go. There's my email that would go to a customer. So you'll notice what this does is it's telling me, and it's just still downloading from my email server. It's telling me that there was a new work order scheduled for Stephen, the technician, and it's telling me the work order number. It's telling me where they're coming to my house. This is my when. It's scheduled for today at 2:30. Who's coming? This is the picture of the technician. And as the customer, I can either click on decline or I could click on confirm. So if I confirm this appointment, it's going to confirm it. It's just going to give the user, open up a little browser, and just say thank you. The technician will see you today at 2:15 or 2:30. Now, what's nice about that is, let's go back into AlarmBiller now, and I'm going to click refresh. You'll notice that this schedule appointment now has a green bar around it. It's maybe a little thin to see on the webinar, but the green bar means that this has been confirmed by the customer. Had the customer declined it, it would have been a red bar around it. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to close the calendar for a moment and go back into my work orders. And let's just go ahead and sort this real quick. So you'll notice that when I look at my appointments, and here, any appointment that has been confirmed has a green bar around it as well. Any appointment that's been declined would have a red bar around it. So not only can I see it from the calendar, I can also see it from my work orders as well, my open appointments. I can also see it if I go into the work order. You'll notice that the appointment itself has a green bar around it here. So the idea is really quick we could see what the whether the customer has either approved or declined that appointment. So let's go back into edit here, and let's go now, and I'm going to dispatch this technician. So I'm going to say dispatch now. Now, when you dispatch the technician, it will ask if you want to send the customer a notification to let them know that the technician is en route and on their way to their location. You'll also notice that this ticket I could see has been the customer confirmation. It's telling me it's been confirmed, but you can actually yourself confirm it, or if the customer calls up later and declines it, I can actually override it and click decline. And so I could change their status if I need to from within here. So what I'm going to do, just to save a little time, I'm just going to put it in my arrival time now, and I'm going to pretend like we completed it at 4:32. But you'll notice it says not to bill them anything, because remember, this is an installation, and the installation said don't charge for time on site, because that's all built into the price. Had this been a regular service ticket, normally we would bill them for something. So at this point, I've actually done my dispatch, and if everything else is good on this work order, that I don't have to change anything, that my item charges are fine, my parts charges are fine, I can go ahead and I could complete this and create the invoice. But because this work order contains recurring revenue, not only will it invoice the customer, it's going to set up the recurring revenue for future billing, or billing based upon whatever the activation date is. And in this case, it will actually start the activation as of today, being March 12th. And so I'm going to leave it like that. If I needed to, I could click edit, and I could go in and I could change my activation date and do that as well. So now, the other thing we could do here is I'm going to now give it a status and tell it that it's been completed. And so I could come into my completed tab, and here I can actually get the customer to sign off that, if I want them to sign off that the acceptance. So again, I could have them sign this. But what I can also do is I could take a payment from the customer right from here. So if I wanted to collect the payment, and it's only going to be the payment for the total amount here, it is not the payment for the recurring revenue. So if I wanted to collect the payment for the $741, I could either pick a credit card that's currently on file, which this customer doesn't have one, or I could choose new credit card, and I could set up a credit card right on the fly right from here. Or if they wanted to use their bank account on file, I could do the same thing here and choose a bank account, or I can add a new bank account. In this case, I'm not going to go ahead and do that, but I do want to create the invoice, so I'm just going to go ahead now and click Complete Work Order. Oh, one more thing I do want to point out before I do that. Maybe I want to add an invoice memo to this and just put something in here, thank you, and, I could say, installation of new security system. So this will actually now appear on the invoice as a memo line. So I'm going to click my completed work order. And what this will now do is close that work order. And we can actually see that the work order's been closed. And if I want to view the invoice, I could click View Invoice here. And now you could see that this is the invoice that was posted to this customer's account. Now, because this customer was set up for email invoice delivery in their invoice and their customer default, it automatically delivered that invoice to the customer. So that invoice could literally be in the customer's hands before that technician even walks off the property and finishes it. Now, within the invoice, if I wanted to actually print it or mail it or redeliver it, I just click my redelivery button, and I have my choice. I could either preview this invoice, I could print it, or redeliver it. If I click redeliver it, it will ask me, I could do the mail option. Remember, the mail option, we will mail it on your behalf, or I could email it. If the customer said, well, that's not the right email address, you could just actually just change it right here and email it to somebody else. Okay? So that's a nice way to do it. If I'm talking to the customer and they want to pay it, I could click the Pay It button, and it brings me to my payment screen. And again, I could add a new credit card, new bank account, choose one, and I can make a payment and process that payment from here as well. Okay. Let's go back into that invoice. If for some reason I needed to edit it, you do have the ability based upon your security roles and whether it's been paid or not, you can modify and edit that invoice if necessary. And lastly, let's jump back into the customer manager here. And now we could see from within the customer manager that this customer has an open invoice. And under my invoices, there's my open invoice. I could see they have RMR on file of $39.95 now. There's their RMR, the $29.95 for the burglar alarm and the $10 for the maintenance fee. If I click on my sites and systems, I could see we have the site location, which I set up earlier, and there's the system that we installed. And if I click on view underneath the system, I could see the RMR down here at the system level. I could see the parts. So you notice all the parts that were installed here have automatically been added to the customer system list. If I wanted to update it with the locations of each part, I can do that. I can also put in the zone number, and I know the installation date of that. Here I could see any work order for this system, and because it's closed, if I would say show all work orders, I could see the actual work order for that burglar alarm installation. Click view, and you could view the details of it. So everything we're doing all the time is always being maintained and updated within the system. So you can always refer back to anything at any point in time. So with that said, let's go back to some questions. A few more questions have come in. I think some are all over the place, so we might jump back around a little bit. So let's go through these. Here we go. Can you copy a proposal from one customer to another or set up a template? Great question. Thank you for whoever asked that. You set me up very nice. You cannot copy it from one customer to another, but I should say, a template is on its way. So it is, I don't know if it's in this development, next development cycle or the one after, but we will have very soon the ability to create a proposal template, and then you can actually just pick that template and it will do that. So if you sell a package that's always the same, or just needs to be tweaked a little bit, you could pick that package. It will load in the items, the parts, the recurring revenue. You can modify it as you need to, but it will make the data entry a lot easier. So that's coming real soon, so we're excited about that. Can we assign more than one technician for a work order? Yes. You can actually create as many appointments as you want for a work order with as many technicians. So if you need to have 3 technicians to go out there on the same day or different days, you can assign as many as you want. You could create as many appointments as needed for a work order. Are there auto notifications sent to the customer the day before the appointment? The answer to that is something, again, that we are actually going to work on too, to be able to do appointment reminders. We do not have that today, but that is something that's on the schedule and will be available hopefully soon. We schedule in 2-hour windows. This is a way to accommodate our window scheduling system. Right now, our schedule is based upon the actual schedule. So if I look at the calendar, you could really pick any time within a 15-minute increment. But we also know that a lot of companies do morning appointments, afternoon appointments, or within a block of time. So we actually had our weekly development meeting yesterday, where we went through all the ideas, and actually this came up in our meeting yesterday. And we have come up with what we think is a very unique approach, where you'll still put the appointment on the calendar because everything has to go on a calendar, but when you actually create the appointment, you're going to be able to, we're going to have a new option in here. So when you schedule it, you're going to be able to put in what's called a soft schedule. So when it emails the customer, it wouldn't say, like in this case, that it's scheduled for 2:30. It would actually give them, like, and say in the afternoon or within a range of time that it's scheduled for. And that's going to be a new feature that we're going to add to the appointment scheduling. So, we understand that that's something that a lot of companies like to do too, because it's hard sometimes to commit to an exact time. We understand that. Hopefully that answered that. If you have any other questions on that, please let us know. How much ability is available to customize the proposal format, specifically to accommodate the necessary terms and conditions? Well, again, thanks for asking that one too. The answer to that question is we are in the midst of developing a whole proposal and contract management feature that's going to go along with the proposals. So not only will you be able to put together the proposal, but you'll be able to deliver your contracts, your terms, your conditions. You'll be able to upload all that. You're going to be able to format that in any way you want, and you're going to be able to do the electronic signatures right from here as well and get the contract back for you. That is a major development piece. It's probably not going to be ready for about a few months, but our hope is to have that available by the end of the second quarter. So hopefully by sometime by the end of June to have that whole feature available. So we're looking forward to that as well. The next question is, why won't it run the recurring at the time of completion? Is that a possibility? That way the customer gets only one invoice and not having to go in and create a new invoice just for the RMRs. This is something that we have talked about also. It was designed this way, truthfully, out of a little simplicity, but we are going to look to be able to add the initial prorating of RMR on that initial work order. So it's something that we don't have on the development schedule yet, but it is something that we do have on the radar to look at. So more on that to come soon. Can you enter the location on the proposal? I think what you're asking is the location of the parts, and the same thing for the work order. That is a feature that is actually being worked on, and we should have that real soon, so that you really can enter the location one time from the proposal, and it will pass all the way through to the work order and to the customer system record. So that's coming too. Okay. What is the significance of the system, and does a completed proposal need a system? So what a system is, and the reason why there is the significance of a system is the system is really what you installed. What kind of system did you install for that customer? Did you install a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, an access control, a CCTV system, a home theater? So the system is really a collection of all the parts and the equipment and the recurring revenue for that system that you have. So right now the answer is yes, we do require the system, and you have to have a system for a work order. And the reason why I say right now that's required is because we do have a feature coming relatively soon where you're going to be able to create work orders for a site where you will not have to have a system. You'll even be able to create recurring revenue for a site without having a system. So today, yes, the system is required, but in the future, probably within the next month or two, the system will not be required. But it will be a company setup option where you have to say whether you want to allow work orders and recurring revenue to be created without a system. So you'll be able to use it the application in any mode that's desirable for you. Is there the ability to have each technician to view all their scheduled work orders in a calendar or on their phones? Yes. That would be done by going into the setup, and when you create a user, every user you create, and let me just come over here, I'm just going to modify this user, you can create what are called user roles. And you'll notice if I click technician, it will give me my user security permissions. But this is a specific permission set for a technician. If I change it, it will go custom. But under this permission set, this user can only see their service tickets and their work orders and their appointments because they're set up as a technician. Where if I'm set up as a user, manager, or administrator, I could see everybody's. But if they're set up just as a technician, they can only see excuse me, their own service tickets and their work orders. So there is a way to do that. Is there a mobile app or a mobile web version? Yes, the nice thing about AlarmBiller is it's been optimized to work on any type of device. Ideally, in the field, we recommend any type of tablet, a Windows tablet, an iPad, a Google, an Android tablet, a Nook. They all work just fine. I personally have an iPhone 6 Plus, and I could see it just fine on the iPhone 6 Plus. It's a little small. It could work on a regular iPhone or a regular smartphone. It will get a little bit small, but it works on it. So really, any device the application will work on. Tablets work great in the field for your technicians. Next question says, does the customer get an estimate of arrival time when the technician leaves the prior site? That's a great question, and the answer right now is no, because we would have to know their physical location and then do, with GPS mapping, is do a time estimate. So right now we don't do that. That is something, excuse me, we have looked into by looking in, and we're going to do some more exploring by if they're using, for example, an iPad, and we could use their geolocation, and then we could do kind of an estimate off of that by using like Google Maps or the maps in the phone, and then determine the route and how much time it estimate says that it should take to get there. So it is something we've talked about, but right now we don't give an estimate of the time that it's going to take for the technician to get there, just the fact that he's been dispatched and he should be arriving shortly. I'm going to take two more questions. The last two questions are a little bit off topic, but they're still very good questions, so I want to try to answer these. The first one says, what about taking a check from a customer? Well, there's two different things, and I'm not sure which one you're asking for, so I'm going to talk about both of them. One is what I call a check over the phone. So if I was talking to, let's just bring up that customer, Stephen, real quick here. So there's our customer, Stephen, that we were just in before. And let's say I was talking to Stephen, and he wants to pay this invoice, the $741, so I click Pay It. And he says, I want to use a check over the phone. That's called an e-check. So I could, and if I don't have one set up, I could just say, let's just take an e-check. I would put the customer's name and address information in here. I'll pick their it's a checking account, the bank name. I'll just call this ABC Bank. I would say the account name, and I would put Stephen's name in here. I'd get his account number from him. I would put his bank routing number in here. And at this point, I would click Save. And I don't think this is a valid one because that's not a valid account number. Let's see if this works. Okay, so I created a fictitious bank account on file for him. So I would just pick this bank. I would just say that this is okay per Stephen. and then I would just say, what do I want to pay? And I would click Submit Payment. Now, obviously, this being a fictitious bank account, it's really not going to fund at the back end. And that's all part of the funding process on the EFT. And we're going to talk about that in one of our next webinars and go into that in more detail. And we'll be more than happy if you have any questions on that to call our support. We'll do that. But that's what we call a check over the phone. If they pay by check and they send a check in, you'll handle that in the payment section by just coming in here and creating a payment batch. And again, we've done other webinars on those. Those are posted online. Or if you have any questions on that, feel free to submit those to our support department. Next question is, can you speak to the QuickBooks integration? So yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. What the QuickBooks integration does, it really is an export. And what we're doing is we're exporting all the data from that's created in AlarmBiller, all the general ledger data, your invoices, your payments, your income, that it's going to actually post that into QuickBooks. So you could come over here and you could click on the setup, exports, and click on QuickBooks. And what there is right from here, there's a really nice document. So if you click this link right here, QuickBooks Documentation, this will give you a really nice document that talks about how the QuickBooks integration and the export works. So I highly recommend you read this before doing the QuickBooks export. What this will actually then do is you'll pick the date range where you want to get all the QuickBooks data through. So if I said I wanted to get everything through the end of February, I would then click Export. This would then create the export file for you, and then from there, you would import that data into QuickBooks. Now, one thing that's very important to note, any data that you export from AlarmBiller is automatically locked, meaning you cannot modify it. And that's because it's been exported to QuickBooks, and once it's been exported to QuickBooks and imported in there, we need to keep you need to keep your data in sync. So if we allow the data to be changed, there's really no way for us to sync it on the AlarmBiller end. So when you export it, you really want to make sure that everything is good through that date, because it automatically locks the data from there. So if you have more questions on that, let us know. I did talk to Rebecca this morning, and I believe that's going to be one of the next webinars we do very soon, as well as we're going to create a video on the whole exporting process. Okay, so since I see that we have 5 more minutes and 3 more questions came in, I'm going to try to answer these real quick. Can a technician who is set up to see only their own work orders see closed work orders from other technicians for the site they are on? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think they can. I think when they're inside of a work order, so anytime you're inside of a work order, so let me just go into this one. What they can see, they can see the system notes. If they click on the customer manager, they would be able to see the work orders. I think they could see them. I'm not sure if they could drill into them. That's a good question. I'm going to have to find someone find that out, and we'll have to answer that offline. But thanks for asking that. Upon entering credit card or e-check data, does AlarmBiller go off immediately and validate the number even though there are no current charges? Good question. On a credit card, yes. There is algorithms in there. It's not going to tell you whether it's the credit card necessarily will be processed correctly, but it will come back and tell you whether it's a valid credit card number, or same thing with a bank routing number. But if somebody gives you a fictitious, a valid bank routing number, but gives you a a bad checking account number, it will not be able to verify that until you actually process it. There's really no other way except when you process a transaction to be able to verify that. Okay, and then the last question, are there plans to allow dealers to set up fillable forms within the Center system to generate letters or monitoring certificates for customers? That is something, again, that's also on our development roadmap. I don't know where it stands, but the answer is yes. We definitely want to be able to create those kinds of forms and give you tools to do emailing, create certification certificates for insurance companies and for monitoring certificates. So that is something that we are working on as well within here. So before I end, I want to just say a few things. One, as always, thank you very much for joining today's webinar. But more importantly, please keep your ideas, suggestions, and feedback flowing into us. Believe it or not, this is where we get all the ideas and we get all the features and functionality for new things that we're going to do. They come from you, our users, and from people looking at using the software. The development work is an ongoing process. We have a lot of really, really exciting and neat ideas and plans to continuously enhance the application. So keep keeping the feedback coming into us and keep pushing us with new ideas and suggestions. So once again, thank you very much. And I seem to have done it again, and I've used up the whole hour. So thank you, and have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.